you guys do arts. I know you did sports a lot, but did you ever do any kind of like art class or anything like that when you were growing up?
Yeah, I always loved art class. Um, I guess for me, I never thought that it was like a true possibility to go into. I feel like I was encouraged to go into STEM. Um, and I liked it too, so it was never like a big ask for me, but I loved art growing up. I remember like in elementary school, my best friend and I would draw like our designs on characters and do fashion together. And then like in middle school and high school, those would be my electives. I took art for my electives in middle school when I didn't have to. I did guitar. Um, I did like ceramics in high school and like intro to drawing. Um, and I even took like a just an intro arts course in college as well. So I always feel like I've stayed in touch, but it's not been a big part of my life.
What you struck me though is that you said that you're never really thought about the arts as a career and was
Yeah.
encouraged in STEM,
Hmm.
which would be about right because I think what like 25 years ago or so, like STEM was all the push,
Yeah.
all of that.
Especially like women in STEM too was huge. And so since I did well in those classes, I loved math, really liked biology, stuff like that. Um, I kind of was encouraged by teachers and myself to stick with that.
Did you find um, being involved in art and that like creative process helped in other areas of school or thinking? So,
Um,
like one of my mantras, I'll just tell you where is that you can't be innovative if you're not creative.
yeah.
And so, regardless what industry you're in,
Hmm.
you need to have that creative thinking, and that the arts is one. I mean, every day they're thinking in creative ways and solving problems.
Yeah.
Have you ever considered that experience helped you in other areas?
I definitely have thought about it before. I don't have any concrete examples of how that helped, but I don't think of myself as too creative. Um, but I do think that like helps in a thought process way. Like I don't limit myself to one
Yeah.
area. I like the intertwining of different subjects.
Do you ever think about or do you engage in any cultural or arts institutions around where you live?
Yeah. When I first moved to Boston, though, I had minimal friends. I knew very few people here, and I had to find a way to spend my time after my work day ended. So I actually did get back into the arts during that time. It was something that I actually really like to do. Um, it's something I like to do on my own. It's something I like to do with friends. My friends don't, it's not something that they suggest a lot. So if I do go with them, it's probably because I asked. Um,
Can you give me an example of like what things do you like to do with the
yeah.
arts?
Well, for my birthday 2 years ago, I asked my parents for the Museum of Fine Arts membership. So I'd go there every month, maybe every other month. I really liked when they had like special exhibits. That was probably my favorite. The other museums here, they have like Thursday nights that are free, so I'll go during those nights. And I would do like the Institute of Contemporary Art pretty often. The Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum. Those ones don't rotate as much. Like the Isabella has a contemporary side to it, but then the rest of it's just what she had in her house. So that doesn't rotate. So I don't go there as frequently, but I still like to walk around.
So your medium of choice is seems to be more visual arts than performing.
Um, Honestly, I think the orchestra is probably my preferred, but maybe it's not as accessible.
Talk to me about
Mhm.
that. What doesn't seem as accessible? This is what I think I'm hearing, but tell me if I'm wrong,
Yeah.
is the museums you can go by yourself and not feel
Right.
out of place, but it
Mhm.
may be more awkward to go to an orchestra performance alone because most people go with other people. It's not an isolated,
Yeah.
is that,
I think that's it. I think also like the cost, like with the membership of the museum, I didn't have to pay every time I went. So it was easier just to kind of be like, oh, I don't have anything this weekend. I'll head to the museum. Whereas the orchestra has to be a little bit more planned out. Plus, I feel like either they don't advertise it as well or they don't have as many programs. So, like, I know about the holiday one, but then for 2 to 3 months, it's just the holiday program. So you can't go multiple times unless you really liked it.
yeah, no, then that's interesting too, because I was going to ask you. So, how do you get your museum information to know when exhibitions are turning over versus the orchestra?
Yeah. I follow them on Instagram. I follow all the museums in Boston on Instagram.
How do they do in communicating to you, you specifically your demographic? How do you
Mhm.
feel they're doing as far as messaging and marketing?
I think they're doing all right. I think being on social media and being on Instagram specifically for those museums and for my generation, I think that's the best that like form of communication for me. I think I'm also signed up on their emails, but I don't pay attention to that as much. Their free days and things like that seem to be advertised more to families and educating a younger generation. So sometimes that's like, oh, if I go, will it just be a bunch of kids, or if I go, is it going to be a bigger mix? I have noticed actually, I think it is the MFA, the Boston MFA, that does a Friday or like late nights.
Yeah.
I think it's like once a month, a Friday. They do have like late nights where you can get a drink and visit the museum. I also live in the south end of Boston, and it butts up against SOA is what it's called, and that's like an art district here. So they have in the summer they have a market for people to sell their art. They also have a bunch of galleries that you can walk through.
So touch back then to the orchestra. Do you follow them on social media?
No, I don't. I don't even know if they have one, but I probably should look.
You would prefer to go to the orchestra?
I love music. My parents would always make fun of me because I would go to a concert with my high school friends like all the time. I did hear through um, Ben's grandma, she will go to the orchestra's practices and they have that open to the public, which I never knew, but clearly her age knows about it. Like, I think that should be
Yeah.
probably advertised a little bit more because it is so close to my apartment. I'm sure more people would go if they could just walk in, sit down for 30 minutes, and then get back to studying or get back to work.
Yeah. So do you feel intimidated ever going into a museum or going to the ballet or to the orchestra or, is what is that like?
I definitely have. I think the ballet and the orchestra are more intimidating. I do feel like it's like a very classy establishment. Like you have to be dressed a certain way. Some places you can take food and beverages into your seats, and some places you can't. So being aware of more of the rules that are associated with it, whether they're written or unspoken rules, I think that is intimidating. Um, my experience, though, just forcing myself out of my comfort zone and doing those things anyways, is most people that work there or volunteer there are really excited to see young people. So I've always had a positive experience, but I do get scared. Like, what if I do something wrong and get in trouble? Like, I don't, I want to avoid that at all costs, but everybody's been always super friendly.
So where do you get your information about the orchestra or ballet on events other than holiday,
Mhm.
special, like Nutcracker, those things?
Um, I think it's it's mostly because I'm interested in the holiday events that either through buying tickets, I sign up with my email, and then every once in a while I'll get the newsletter, and it'll catch my attention, but just because it's in my email, like it gets overlooked more often.
Do you ever go on websites directly of any of the arts?
Um, Maybe for the Boston Symphony, um, I have because I knew I wanted to go to that, but I think most of the time I do end up being involved in the arts. It's because I saw something on social media. Maybe like the MFA too. Um, but I kind of feel like mine's a special circumstance. I think I searched a lot of things to do in Boston because I didn't know anybody out here. But if you are in a city and you already have your ways of knowing, gathering information and hearing about things, then um, maybe you won't have that like openness to look in different areas.
So my mind goes to, wouldn't it be kind of fun, and tell me, you can say I'm no, you can disagree
Mhm.
with me. Like, what if the orchestra did like their social media feed was about, taking you through what you could expect the experience to be like, that perhaps the dress code isn't as special or
Mhm.
um professional as you might think. Yes, it's okay to go in jeans,
Yeah.
and there is an intermission where you can get drinks. Or do you know what I'm saying? Do you
Mhm.
think something like that would be helpful to people, young professionals that might
Yeah.
want to explore it, but you don't know if it is that accessible?
I definitely think that would be very helpful and informative. I think it could be a video that they pin to the top of their Instagram page, and so they don't have to repost it. It'll always just be there for you to reference if you need it. Yeah, I think that would be useful. Well, I guess like it's the age of the influencer. So if you had TikTok influencers that are Boston specific or Columbus specific, like, and they got asked to come to one of those events and post about it on their TikTok, I think that'd be really helpful. I think when you go to the orchestra or ballet, for example, it is a lot of older volunteers. So maybe people my age wouldn't feel as comfortable to go up and ask for information. But if they saw their favorite influencer in their city go to the ballet, like they would see it as more approachable. And that could even be informative too, like paying a TikToker or somebody to just kind of post about their experience. I've definitely seen a lot of those videos, so I think that would be something useful.
Yeah. We talked about how you can get a membership to the museum and you don't have to pay every time, but the barrier for the orchestra is a little bit different, and the ballet. Let's say there was some sort of membership-ish, I'm just making this up. You could get, for this amount, you could get 3 performances in that you can go to in the season.
Hmm.
Um, where are you with that, and having the time to go do that? Is work a constraint, or is it something that yes, you could make the time
Yeah,
because you care, that interested in it?
I definitely would make the time. I think for me, that sounds like a great gift idea. Like, I know there's a lot of people in my life that appreciate those things, but maybe it's not a priority for them. So giving that as a gift, it's like, oh, this is something I should be doing and I want to be doing. It makes it that much easier to allocate the time for it. For me, it is like special because of the traditional experience. Like you see it in movies and things like that. Like it's fun to go experience that way. But at the same time, like I'd be open to something like the practices, where it's
Yeah.
maybe more casual. Maybe it's even like a little bit interactive, like the conductor talks to the crowd for a little bit. I think that'd also be interesting. I think having a variety of options would be great.
You know, are you marketing to the audience you have or to the audience that you would like to have?
Yeah.
And I think there can be a balance. It needs to be a balance for both to narrow the generational gap that most traditional performing arts are facing.
Mm-hmm. I also think that the generations should interact too. Like it's like, yeah, it might be more intimidating if you see a bunch of older people at the orchestra, but having an opportunity in a space where you're sharing an interest, like I think that itself is valuable.
Well, Jeanette, I think you are a true ambassador for orchestra media. I mean, I can think of so many people that I could say, hey, you should tap in to this woman who's got this. It sounds like a natural passion that you've
Yeah.
cultivated yourself.
I want to add to like art communities, once you get into it, like there are a lot of resources. It's just that first entry, like knowing that I live next to this neighborhood that's focused on artists and they have the galleries and they even have like ceramics classes you can sign up for. All those things, like if I hadn't like taken one step, it's just one step, but then once you're in there, there is a lot of access to information. You just have to.
Thank you for your time.
Of course, I enjoyed the conversation.
So glad I did too. And I think it definitely will help.